Our closing keynote speaker is Professor Ethan Mollick from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Ethan is a leading expert on innovation and entrepreneurship and a prominent voice. Okay, just take a second. Yeah. And a prominent voice on the impact of AI in education and business. He's the co-author of Co-Intelligence, Living and Working with AI, which explores the transformative potential of human-AI collaboration. And to me, I think the first thing that I saw from your work, and really where I was very impressed, was your fearlessness with experimenting with AI in public. So you've, I think, been at the forefront of these public experiments with AI. I think many of us know him through Twitter or X, where he's really discovering what these models can do, what they can't do. I've heard from folks at the tech companies that they're often discovering what the models they made can do via Ethan's blog posts and his Twitter posts and his lectures. And so he's actively testing these tools not only that way, but also in his classroom as well at Wharton with AI-augmented classes. So please join me in welcoming Professor Ethan Mollick, and he'll be sharing his thoughts on education in the world of AI.
Hello, everybody. So exciting. All right. Hey, thank you. Sorry to kick you out there. All right. I have a half hour, and I see the timer is already getting ready to go. So, and I'm coming at the end, which is always a tough keynote because I don't know what you've seen. So I am probably going to repeat a few things you've seen already, because I was listening to the last talk, it was pretty sophisticated already. And so let me make sure I can plug all of this in and it works properly. Okay, excellent. I'm glad to be here with all of you. Like I said, I probably will repeat some stuff. I'm gonna do some live demos. And that was an amazing intro, so thank you so much. I always like to reintroduce myself a little because I'm conceited. So here's me again. Hopefully it works. No, okay, no sound? Sound working now? Okay, hold on. This is the problem with trying at the last second. Let me try one more time. We will see if we can fix that. And sound should be working for you guys. Ready to try it again in the booth? Okay, we're going. Let's do it. There we go. Nope, never mind. It was gonna be awesome though, just trust me. I'll send you guys a link to it. But the point I wanna make about AI stuff is not really about the intro. It's three things that I think really transform education, which is that AI is undetectable, which of course means everybody's cheating all the time, 100%. So it's really weird. Education is like the sharp end of the AI adoption curve. 70% of students are using AI in undergrad and K-12 programs. So like, if they're not telling you about it, they're still using it. And we can't detect AI writing. We'll never be able to fully. It's gonna be an arms race forever. So we gotta deal with that. Second is ubiquitous. So the thing that's really exciting, I've been, long before AI, I was building tools in education systems to try and teach people at scale through simulations and experiences. And by the way, every image in this presentation is AI generated, in case that wasn't clear by me. What's made AI really interesting is the first tool that's ubiquitously available. So normally, if I would go to Harvard, they'd have cooler tools than anyone else. There's a lot of money there. But if I would go to a rural school or a school in a different country, I may have much less access. GPT-4o is available for free ubiquitously around the world, basically to over 5 billion people, $20 for even more access. Really unique time with ubiquitous use. And finally, transformative. I think you made a really major point there, which is the AI labs look at me for coming up with answers and stuff. That's scary. Like, nobody knows anything. Nobody knows what these models can do. I can guarantee you that nobody building these models knows anything about medicine or medical education at all, like even a little bit. They are coders, and they're building this stuff as like a coding solution for coding people. And the fact that it destroyed all homework was sort of, they didn't even know that that was happening. Every industry is discovering use cases. There's no one to help you. Like, we have to help each other out because there's no actual answer out there. They're not thinking about this. The fact that the model is really good at medicine turned out to be an accident. It's absolutely unexpected. So they really are, when a new model gets released, I always find it funny. I make fun of the Google team was like, we released a new model. And I'm like, where's the release notes? And they wrote back to me quietly saying, well, we don't know what it does, so we're hoping someone else will tell us what the release notes are. Okay, so that's where we are. But just the context setting, I know you all know this, but starting a year ago, things got really weird. This is GPT 3.5, the free version of chat. It's test scores. And when I say 65% on the GRE qualitative, for example, which you use to get into grad school at Penn, that's not 65% right. That's 65% of human test takers beaten by the AI, right? And then it got even weirder. GPT-4 maxed out everything else. And then now, basically, we've got 5 different AIs. They get 90 percentile or anything above on any test. Claude did this when I showed it a screenshot of the Llama 3.1 statistics, and I said, just turn this into a chart for me. So anyone can do that if you want, just ask it. This is also the technology with the fastest adoption in history, and there's no way we're going back. So I talk to people who are like, well, maybe we can turn back the clock. This is not going to happen, right? We've never seen an adoption curve like this. People are obviously finding it useful. I think there's sort of a rear fight of like AI criticism, which we'll talk about because I think there's valid things to criticize. But half of teachers and students and parents are using this at least once a week at work at school, and there's not going to be anyone who isn't using AI to do things. So we can try and pretend that we want to abandon it, we want to change use. It's not going to happen. So the thing I've been warning about since AI came out, which is the homework apocalypse, already happened. It does all your homework at every level, not just K-12 and college, where it gets a solid 3.34 at Harvard, which even with grade inflation is not too bad, to post-secondary. So this is, you've probably seen the paper from Stanford Medical School that GPT-4 does better than first and second year students. On the right, I like this distribution for law school because it shows you students who didn't get access to GPT-4 is the blue curve, fairly normal distribution curve pushed up against the side. And those who got access is the orange curve. There's no bad lawyers anymore with AI. It just does the work of bad lawyers. So this leveling effect is something we see. And obviously education's a big deal, and we'll talk about that for most of the time together, but I also think about the impact in the real world. So I've been doing a bunch of studies on this with colleagues at Harvard, at the Business School, and at MIT and at University of Warwick. We went to, for example, Boston Consulting Group, did an experiment where we created 18 realistic business tasks. It's an elite consulting company, analysis tasks, creativity tasks. Some of the consultants got access to GPT-4, some did not, and this is what happened. Performance went up 40% in quality, 26% in speed. And to put that in context, when steam power was put into a factory in the early 1800s, it improved performance by 18 to 22%. So these are like really big numbers. Another paper just came out on coding using GitHub Copilot, which was the early version of these coding tools, GPT 3.5 powered for those who care about these things. And that found a 25% improvement in speed for coders in the real world getting it too. So this is a minimum line is like 20% to 60% performance improvements are pretty standard. And then the other thing that really matters for us as educators is low performers get the highest boost. If you were in the bottom half of the skill distribution, you get a 43% improvement at BCG, top half you got 17. Now, it actually is a little weirder than that because we measured something called retainment, which is how much of the AI's answer the consultants ultimately turned in as their own. The only way for 80% of consultants to mess up was to add any of their own thoughts or ideas into the AI's answer. As long as they didn't modify GPT-4's answer, they did great. And this is kind of common, right? As it moves up the skill distribution, the question is not like, can it do the work? It's like, whose work can it do? And we're finding some similar effects in medicine. This is a classic paper I'm sure you've seen here before too, right? Answering common medical questions on Reddit. There's a lot. Medicine's been doing a really nice job with more deep dives into deeper areas. But I think it's a nice preview of kind of where things are going. Physician rated, and there's a Google paper showing the same thing. Physician rate the chatbot answers more accurate than the average physician. And everyone constantly says that it's more empathetic than physicians in every study that we have, right? And I'm sure that's something you've talked about. And I think we need to figure out what that means for what we want to do as a field, right? We shouldn't be leaving tools behind that do useful things. Right now, I don't think this is validated enough for first-line medical work, but my standard is always best available human. Is it better or worse than the best human someone has access to? And I think that's a relevant question in medicine. And then we get all these other weird effects, like it's better than humans at creativity. My colleagues at Wharton ran a study where they had their innovation class generate 200 business ideas. They had the AI generate 200 business ideas. They had outside judges of my willingness to pay, how good the quality of the idea was as seen by other humans. Of the top 40 ideas, 35 came from the AI, only 5 from the people in the room. And just in every creativity study, AI crushes the average human. Still not as good as the best humans, but better than the average. And then on the persuasion side, very relevant for what we do, AI is more persuasive than humans. If you get into a debate with an average human versus the AI, you're 81.7%, I think I have the wrong number here, 81.7% more likely to change your view to the AI view. And the only thing we've ever found that robustly lowers conspiracy theory beliefs in the long term is getting into a 3-round debate with the AI. People who do that have a lower conspiracy theory belief on any conspiracy theory 3 months later. Like nothing else moves that needle. But on the other hand, if you can move the needle on deeply held beliefs through persuasion, through AI, it's not just conspiracy theory beliefs we have to worry about. So another uncharted territory. And if you haven't seen this study, there's a bunch of them that all find the same thing, which is the people whose job are most affected by AI are those who are most educated, highly paid, and most creative. Out of 1,016 jobs in this study, Business school professor, by the way, was number 22, so I think about this a lot. For least affected jobs, just in case you want to know, our professional dancer, professional athletes, so not too late for most of us, and then roofer and ditch digging. Although I actually have an Amish roofer, and I talked to him, and he is using AI to send out proposals. So if they got to the Amish, I think it's too late for all of us. But the idea is like this is overlap, not replacement, right? It means that AI overlaps with the kind of work that we do. That's transformation, right? I like giving talks like this. I like doing research. I don't like doing grading. Should I be giving off the grading to AI, given that the latest papers show it's pretty good as a grader? But on the other hand, am I betraying trust to my students? We have a lot of questions to answer about these things as transformation happens. My main argument, though, is in the world of ubiquitous AI, baseline knowledge matters more than ever. You can't check these things or figure out what they do unless you know stuff. Expertise matters more than ever. I mean that in the true sense of expertise, right? Which is something we try and train people, which means autonomous ability to judge things by internal heuristics and repeat practice at a high level. Training matters more than ever. We need to be able to actually do stuff rather than just be able to talk about it. And all of that means that education matters more than ever in a world of AI, right? So I actually think that the hard part lifting comes on us as educators to think about this stuff. So our advice to classrooms is to go back to what you want students to learn, and then you decide on how you're using AI based on that. And you really have kind of two choices. Option one is return to the basics, okay? And so I've got pictures of the classic 1970s calculators up there. Like, calculators absolutely invalidated a large part of the math curriculum, and it caused a lot of chaos in the mid-70s. And then we figured out, okay, we still want people to do basic math, and at some point we transition from that. Otherwise, how do we keep them honest? We don't use electronic means. We have them take tests by hand that make sure they have that knowledge. Completely legitimate to go back to solid pedagogy, low-stakes testing. Every research paper ever on the pedagogy of low-stakes testing suggests it is great for actually not just testing, but students remember things better when they're tested. They recall better in the future. They recall related facts better. Like, there's lots of reasons to do low-stakes testing. Blue books and in-class assignments, active discussion in class. But what's great then is even in this case where you're not letting the AI, we'll talk more about students using it, there's huge value for educators using this. And when we look at the real world, this is what teachers are using this for, is like lessons ideas and creating worksheets and other kinds of things in the real world. Of course, everybody's making it up as they go along. I told you there's no instruction manual. So the fourth most common use or fifth most common use is seeing if anyone plagiarizes. And if you didn't know this already, you cannot ask the AI if something is AI written. GPT-4 tells you 95% of the time that it is because it wants to make you happy. And it's like, oh, I can help you with this one. And it's just lies. So those don't work. Actually, no AI detectors actually work, but that is an especially terrible technique. There is now some research showing that the benefits of AI flow to teachers who are using this as a form of co-intelligence, which means that they are not just asking it for output, but they're also seeking input. So they're not just saying, give me this thing, but they're having a discussion with the AI about a topic they want to pursue or information that they're interested in. And those people seem to see the largest benefits from AI performance. So I think that this is the angle to think about. This is a longitudinal study of US public school teachers. So think about AI as creative partner seems to help. It also works well as a tool. You give it a document, create a low-stakes test. You can't just ask it that. It does very bad tests actually out of the box, but with the right prompts, I'll give you some links to these. It does a really good job with low-stakes testing. And we find that teachers appreciate this. As soon as, AI is overwhelmingly popular in actual use cases, right? You might find all these surveys that say people don't like AI. In every survey where you actually ask people who are using AI, they're all like super enthused. And the people who aren't enthused are the people who aren't using it. And as soon as they find it's useful, they're like, I like AI. And then they secretly use it and will not tell you about it. All of this, I think, is less interesting than the bigger question of transformation and thinking about transformation in these systems. My classes are 100% AI classes right now. Every assignment is AI-driven and AI-based. I teach entrepreneurship, so it's a doing class, which makes this an easy place to do this. But I want to talk about some of those methods. The problem is the starting point for students when they use AI, because they're using it everywhere. I don't know if you've seen, how many of you teach large classrooms, but one of the big effects over the last year is students have stopped raising their hands as much. And when you ask them why, they say, well, why would I want to show I'm ignorant when the AI will just explain something to me, right? So there's a social contract we have in classes that if you don't know something, you raise your hand, you expose your ignorance, and probably that means I badly explain this for 50 people, right, rather than one. That's broken down. The problem, though, is that students ask the AI for answers to questions, which doesn't provide learning, right? They instead get information in the most comfortable way they can, rather than pushing themselves in a deeper kind of way. And this is pretty bad because it creates higher hallucination risks. And also we have a new study that shows that this falls into the illusion of competence for most students. So as soon as they start using AI to answer questions for them or help them with a problem set, they think they've learned something and they don't. And so we see higher temporary scores on assignments and lower scores on tests. That's mitigatable, but you can't just say use AI and it'll all work out fine. It just doesn't. That's not true. That's not how it works. So we can do better. We have been putting together prompts that force the AI to do more interesting things. And again, there's links to all of this stuff. If you go to moreusefulthings.org, I've got our prompt library there along with all the writings on this, all free. Creative Commons too, which we'll talk more about in a second. But we can go better than just tutors. I want to show you some tutoring, but also thinking about like AI as ways of enacting forms of pedagogy that we know from the research are successful, but that we don't do much otherwise. So here's an example. Let's pull one up here. I have to drag the screen over here, so hold on one second. I have, okay, so here's an example of, and I'm gonna have to strain my head a little here, so you'll have to apologize. I try and type, and it's a little small, so let me twist my head in a complete circle. I'm half owl right now. Okay, let's see. Make this a little bit larger, and then I can hopefully see this myself. There we go. All right, is that a little better? So this is just an example of like, help me think through going to medical school. Not that I'd recommend this as the approach, but the idea is that having somebody play a devil's advocate improves team-making performance, right? And people are actually very happy. And so this is not just going to give you things, it's going to push you for your own answers, right? So in education, we don't want to just say, here's the 20 issues with thinking about medical school. It's like, think about your motivations, what's driving you. I am demoing this, just do it for me. Okay. So it'll hopefully come with some answers on its own. And it is great at coming up with human-style answers. So the idea is it's going to give us these challenges and approaches which improve decision-making. Another example is, let's look at this one here. So let's take an example of like simulations. I've been building simulations for a very long time for teaching. Here's a negotiation simulator. We can build things for other purposes. I've been talking to people in med schools building these simulation tools too. And I can just say things like, I am a high school art student, and a misspelled student, which makes me even more artsy. Okay, and now it's going to say, okay, it's going to build a scenario for us about negotiation, but at first it's going to ask how much we know, and I'll say very little. And now it should start building this here. Now it's going to give us 3 options. One thing we've learned from working with the AI system is you want to actually give people choices rather than just telling them stuff. People like multiple choice solutions. And so which one should we do? Pick a number. 3, okay. The single most annoying scenario for teachers, by the way, like my skin crawls, like negotiate for extra credit. I got 6 of those emails last week. Okay, so now it gives the goal, it gives the teacher perspective, and now look, it's going to do the whole role play together, and in the end, it's going, it's going to, like I'll say, like, give me an A+ now, or I will scream. Okay. Not the best kind of announcement. Okay, raise an eyebrow, I think you're doing this. Now notice, by the way, it's giving us a hint about how to solve the problem, right? So it's not just, like, one of the things that's really interesting about the AI systems when you use it for negotiations, by the way, is when it doesn't like you to make errors or like it wants to help you. So it takes a little bit of effort to suppress the helpfulness because it's kind of like, it doesn't want you to mess up that badly. But here you can see a nice example of it. And what's great is we can go back and forth, but to make this work, all we need to do is like, it's just plain English writing. Here, let me see, I'm sorry, everything lags a little bit here. So here's the actual text of the GPT. And let's see here, pulp configure, hello. And here's the text. So like, it literally is, and again, all these prompts are available, so you don't have to, we got it here, but like, this is literally just writing it the way we would as an instructional designer or teacher. Like, do this, and then go step 1, then set up the role play. And like, this is not, this is created by my wife and co-director of the AI lab with me, and she's never coded a day in her life, but she is a very good instructional designer and has a PhD in education and knows how to talk to students and teachers. That's the methodology here, right? It's really easy to do these kind of things and to kind of push forward in this way. And then it gets even more interesting, right? Because we can go from here to even making our own technology. So again, I'm trying to click on very small buttons. So I want to show you a few different demos. I'm sure you've seen some of this stuff. So many of you probably use Claude, right? One of the things that makes Claude really interesting is you can say, create an interactive demo that explains the Krebs cycle. Make it good. Okay. And so the idea is as these systems start to be able to build, right, and create things for you, it starts to extend your capabilities from just using kind of texted writing. And by the way, about a half hour ago, OpenAI announced that their advanced voice mode is now available through API, so anyone can create an interactive agent you could talk to instantaneously, right? Okay, here we go. And like it just coded this up for us, right? And I can be like, and I could do, and so it's, and I would be like, here, let's say, more interactive. This is lame. Okay. And you can see, I don't think prompting is a huge secret. There is secrets trying to get it to be more accurate or things like that, but just in terms of interacting with these systems, just interacting with them is often enough to do it. And I always like to apologize. It makes me feel good. No one else apologizes to the instructor. So it's always nice to have it kind of grovel and be like, no, you were right. I was so bad. We'll see what it comes up with here. And let's see, it's going to try and create a hands-on demo. We'll see if it creates it successfully or not. Oh, and this is fun because I can do this here. Let's see, and just for fun. And we'll go back here, and we'll just say, really? And I'll just paste in the error message. Okay, so I apologize. And so we'll let it keep going here, but it figures out the problem and solves it. Again, think about all the features, the stuff that you used to have to do that you kind of give up as a result of this, like using these systems in this kind of way. And I mean, it can get much more advanced than this, but this is kind of, this is an interesting starting point. And these are shareable also and playable. The idea that I can throw together interactive, if we're still having an issue, I'd throw it together and do a few other things too. Actually, I think it's probably too large for the file. That's what that means. Like they have limit sizes for how big these can be. But then it starts to get weirder, right? Because like these things can do a lot of our kind of work for us. So, thinking through some of those issues, I'll do in a second. But let me. Did you guys? I heard you talk about Notebook LM. Have you seen Notebook LM in action? Has anyone not seen it in action? Okay. And the rest of you are just completely neutral on the idea of this. What? Everybody's lying. Okay. Okay. So all right. So I'm going to show you Notebook LM for fun because I think you should see this too. We didn't get sound working yet, did we? Okay, I'm seeing a hand up. I'm going to assume the answer is definitely. And as I try and read very small text on the screen. This is what I like is when I talk to academic audience, I can be much more casual. We got these super slick things for 1,000 people, but like you guys, we're going to have a good time together. Did we get sound almost working? All right. Oh, you're going to fix my problems for me. Okay, great. Let's go here, and I just need to. Is this Google? Yes, it is Google. And where am I logging in here? Okay, I've already subscribed to this thing. Hold on, as we try and get this operational between the lagging stuff. Oh, your sound works now? Great. Okay, let me try one more time to get, it's got the, all right. Hold on as we find the right page. Again, my problem is really seeing what's going on here. No, it's not the blog. All right, sorry guys, as I get this working. Okay, here we go. Where is my notebook? Okay. I like that all the ads are about how to try Notebook, which is great. All right, we'll try it. We'll see what happens. Google doesn't always do a good job with their own thing. Okay, great. So here is, here for example, I gave the AI my entire book and all my blog posts and a couple academic articles. And this is the fun stuff, but it's actually not the most useful. But here, it took all of that, and then if we get this right, it compressed it all into.
Okay, so today we're really diving
podcast.
deep into AI, but not like the robot overlords stuff you see everywhere.
Right.
We're talking like how different this all is and like what it means for you and me like right now.
Yeah, and thankfully we have Ethan Mollick's book, Co-Intelligence Living and Working with AI, to guide us.
Oh, and some of his Substack stuff too, right?
Yeah.
One useful thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that book, man, it really flipped my thinking on
Right.
AI, honestly.
And you
Like,
can throw in as complicated an academic article as you want, and it will do that. But this is one of the cool features. But the other cool features is it just solved a whole bunch of problems that all the ed tech companies are going to try and sell us soon, which is I can have it create a study guide for us, or I can ask questions of the text. It has all the problems of this stuff. There's still hallucinations and other issues. But like, if your students aren't loading everything they've ever read into this kind of material so they can ask questions of it, they're leaving stuff behind. And the study guides are really good. Like, it's creating a study guide on demand here, right? And I can show you an example of that. And like, here's a study guide for my book with all of the, all the key questions to ask. Again, free product right now. I'm sure it'll be $20 a month eventually, but in the world of education, ed tech, it's not that pricey. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff I want to show you. Well, I probably don't have time, so I want to get onto a couple more points that are really important here. So one thing I was going to say is you can, if I have more time at the end, I'll show you. You can make your own tech. And this is actually something we're doing at Wharton. We're building this so that we're building an open source tool, so you can basically say, create a simulation set in tomorrow's class, look it all up, and it literally builds it for you. It interviews you, it then creates the simulation using multiple agents, then it actually tests it by putting fake students through, who then have to and it revises and it approves itself, and then it actually deploys it to the students and gives you feedback and grading on it. And the point of this is like, once you have this stuff, anyone can really do this. Like, it's incredibly easy to share your expertise and knowledge, and getting easier all the time. Just one more example for fun. So here is, I'll show you. This is an academic paper I wrote with my team, if I can pull it over for you, on, that's the basis for our idea on how to build an AI, this is the AI agents, paper, right? So it's a nice, little academic paper. And I have the text of it here. I want to show you something. If we go over to 01 here, and I have many more educational examples, but I'm trying to kind of give you an overview of what's been happening. It's fun. Here's 01 preview, which will be full 01 soon. I could just say, build an educational simulation using ideas from this paper. And I'm just going to post in the entire academic paper and hit enter. And so now it's going to think through this, and it's going to create that for us, right? So every academic paper, by the way, you can also ask it to do replications, which is really interesting if it has the data set. And now it's going to go through and turn that paper and take all the theoretical ideas and turn them into actual working ideas. I'm going to get pages and pages of this stuff. But what's cool then is I can go one step further, talk about learning objectives and resources, conclusions. Okay, now I'll just say, build all the code. Right? And so it just imagined an entirely new simulation framework based on an academic paper, and now it's going to build the code in this. One thing I would urge you guys to do is think about going back to the primary sources and documents. Here it goes. Now it's starting to build all this. It's coming up with the code libraries. It's doing all the setup for it, and it's actually coming up with prompts for itself, which I think is pretty neat. This changes the capabilities of what education is. So what I'm worried about is we're kind of stuck on use GPT-4, don't use GPT-4. Like the ground beneath what we're doing is shifting in a fairly large way in terms of what we could do as educators, what we need IT departments to do for us, what we can do on our own. I mean, it's just scrolling pages and pages of this stuff as we talk. So I only have 3 minutes left, so I'm going to try and land this chaotic airplane. Okay, so what now? 3 important points. There's no instruction manual out there. Nobody has any information for you about how to make this work. Your learning and development people don't, because OpenAI doesn't, because there's no best practices anywhere. We don't know anything. But I will tell you, the key revelation is working with AIs like teaching. A fun cheating example of this, I asked my students in my executive MBA class, how many of you were getting help from AI? And because I teach AI stuff, everyone raised their hand. And somebody said, but it was really bad at pricing homework. And someone else turned to them and said, it's not bad at pricing homework. You're just a bad teacher and manager. It's great at pricing homework. You just had to point out to a better textbook for it to read and give it some instructions that were clear, and it just gets 100% on pricing homework. These systems, working with them is like working with teachers. Teachers are the best users of this. Coders often have a lot of trouble with these systems. But teachers, educators, you'll get it. You'll start working with this, you'll be like, oh, as somebody who worries about pedagogy, these systems continually make mistakes about the existence of learning styles. I think learning styles are real. They're a debunked idea, but 95% of teachers believe it, so the AI believes it. So we know that we have to tell it, don't use learning styles, right, as one of the things that we talk to it about. Similarly, we know where the AI is pretty good about bias, but there's some areas where it's very biased. You use it enough and you start to understand, this is a biased area, I'm not gonna ask it questions in this space. It does a really bad job role-playing kids, for example. It almost always brings it down. Like if you ask it to role-play children and you push it hard enough, it always ends up using positive stereotypes. There's an Asian kid who's good at math, and there's a black kid good at basketball, and it's like, oh God, we can't use this, right? Like this is terrible. So you have to be thinking about, like, when you use these systems, you'll figure out the barriers of where it's good or bad, and we don't really have a choice about embracing it because it's happening already. And you know your own environment. You know how to adapt this. You know how to think about using it. So it has to be on educators to do this. And I like to say instructors are coders now. All of you are programmers. And if you're not programming, you're just waiting for someone else to come up with this. That's not the way to go. Like, you can build and share these kind of prompts, and it is incredibly important for the world that we start doing these things, because no one else is going to do it for us. We can't wait for the usual channels. We can disrupt the whole sort of for-profit education system that's made it very difficult, and we have to buy their tools. Build your own simulators. Like, I've been building these for years. You could spin up one amazingly right now. We should be working together and thinking about these things. I think we're going to figure it out in schools. We're going to be okay, because ultimately the stuff that works terribly is the stuff that we shouldn't be doing pedagogically. Like, it turns out, like, lectures are terrible for the most part. I mean, not always. You can do good lectures, but like active learning is good. AI makes lectures worse, but it makes active learning better because you can come up with all kinds of active learning activities. The real thing I'm worried about is what happens after school, because we teach people to be generalists in education, and then they learn to be specialists by practicing their art with expertise. And we're seeing in the business world, the expertise pipeline has become completely severed already, which is that I send my students out to a top consulting firm or medical device company or whatever it is, and they, rather than getting their 2 years of like hard work as a junior person where they learn the ropes, instead, their managers are just not giving them any guidance because they're just using AI to do all the work, because why would they ask the intern to do it when the AI does it? And the interns are all using AI to do the work anyway, because why would they rather try and memorize this stuff? So what I'm really worried is, how do we reconstruct the expertise pipeline when we now have we built our entire expertise pipeline around the idea that learning by doing, using the best tools available to you is, for example, in medical training, that's how you should be doing stuff. But now the tools are the expertise we need to learn. What do we do about that? I think we need to reconstruct some of this from the ground up. So my last advice to you, for educators, I think we need to experiment with AI in any way we possibly can, and try out all your assignments, try out everything you do, experiment till it works. You need your 10 hours of using this if you haven't done that. You're the expert. Like, you will get a sense really quickly because you've taught many people. You'll get a sense very quickly, okay, actually it's very far from doing this. But then a new model comes out and you'll test it again, and you'll figure out what those limits are. And we have to share what we learn. I'm worried about the lack of common discussion among instructors about instructing. A lot of it is because a lot of academics are rewarded for academic research, not for sharing instructional material. That has to change. All of you in top classrooms have to be sharing what you're doing so we can all work and learn and share together. And those networks don't exist yet. And where they exist, they're sort of in a school with a couple of people as guardians of them. We need to have much more broad-based discussion, because AI talent is often well distributed. And I will guarantee to you, I get advanced access to a lot of tools people don't have. We're not done. Like, the thing that has become very clear to me, just as a side note, over the past 3 or 4 months, talking to all the people inside the AI labs, is they've gone from like, we don't know how far this will come, to like absolute confidence from most of them that it's going to scale for at least another 2 generations. Like, we're going to see exponential improvements for at least the next 4 or 5 years. Don't know whether that's true or not, and they genuinely think that they can make a machine better than a human at every task, what they call AGI, intellectual task. That doesn't mean a machine that wakes up and murders us all, but like necessarily. But better at humans than any intellectual task in the next 5 or 6 years. Again, I don't know if that's real or not, but educators think in terms of long term. I think a lot of change is coming our way, and we need to start adapting our systems to this, and it has to be us doing this, because if we don't do it, the labs keep releasing mediocre education projects because they don't know education. They'll release mediocre medical products through startups because they don't know medicine. Like, they don't care about ethics and equity the way we do. We have to be taking an active role, or other people will be taking an active role for us. Just sitting it out doesn't work anymore. So I know you've heard lots of good stuff. I got to hear a lot of the last panel, and there's no easy answers, right? But I think it's time for us to start doing stuff. And I hope that you guys join the experimentation and share with each other. So thanks a lot.